Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you're healthy and doing well. Thank you for joining us today as we continue our series of virtual town halls brought to you by University Advancement. Our town halls aim to share information and updates directly from university leadership with you, Miami's most loyal and dedicated supporters. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Jason Lang, Dean of Miami's College of Education, Health, and Society. Jason is an internationally recognized expert with several best-selling books on higher education and leadership. Prior to arriving at Miami in June of 2021, Jason held the position of Dean of the School of Education and Professor of Educational Policy and Leadership at the University of Albany. And during his time at the University of Albany, he implemented initiatives that turned around the school's declining enrollments, expanded revenues from fundraising, and fostered a more inclusive academic environment. Jason, it is great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Tom. Thrilled to be here.
Thanks to everybody for your questions. I appreciate those being sent in, and some themes emerged. So we're going to address the topics that seem to be top of mind for most of you. So Jason, we'll get started with a big question. As an academic, you are an expert on higher education. And this weekend, you were quoted in the Washington Post saying that the significant drop in students in higher education is a crisis, not just a crisis for higher education, but for the country. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I appreciate that opportunity to talk a little bit about higher education in general. And, I think higher ed is probably one of the greatest social institutions humankind ever created. And Miamians have had just a blessed opportunity to come through the great halls here in Oxford. It is unfortunate that as we look at the numbers, and COVID was a big part of this, we saw about 1 million fewer students enrolling in higher education last year than the year before. Now that varies, right? Miami's enrollments are up, so we're less affected by it. But I think as a country, this is something that we really got to pay attention to, because fewer educated people mean we have less healthy society. We have a less economically engaged society. We have less innovation occurring long term. We have more of what we're experiencing right now, and that is shortages. Schools are being shut down because there aren't enough teachers. Restaurants can't open because they can't find the staff. All sorts of businesses are struggling right now to maintain just continuity of operations because they don't have the staff. And we know that 70% of the jobs of the future are going to take some college. And if we don't have folks coming through higher education and earning that college education, right, those jobs are going to remain unfilled or filled by underqualified individuals. So as a country, we really got to come together and find a way to figure out, how do we encourage more folks to think about higher education? How do we think about different avenues and pathways to bring them into education? How do we rethink what we do and offer in ways that meet the needs of, I think, the society as a whole? I think Miami is well situated for this. We're an interesting ecosystem, I think, of both the Oxford campus and the regional campuses, and we provide a wide range of opportunities for students to come into higher education, to experience higher education in different ways. But as a country as a whole, I think we just need to think more about the power of higher education. How do we encourage more folks to see it as an opportunity?
I certainly agree, Jason. A lot of those jobs need skills, and those skills come from higher education. So we need those enrollments to come back up.
That's right.
So a second question from a participant who says, quote, "I served as a college administrator / vice president for a small liberal arts colleges during my career. Would you address the future of that niche of schools in light of the viewpoint of the future of higher education?"
Yeah, it's a great question, and one, I think we've yet to see what the answer is going to be entirely. But higher ed is changing significantly, and there are going to be institutions like Miami's that are going to continue to, I think, thrive in the environment that they're in. A lot of institutions, particularly those that have been really tuition driven and focusing on what has historically been sort of the middle class students, will struggle moving forward. We see what we're calling a demographic cliff that's hitting the U.S. in 2025, 2026. That's part of what happened after the Great Recession. Fewer people had babies, significant fewer had babies. And so 18 years later, there's significantly fewer individuals coming through high school and graduating. So at a time when we're seeing declining enrollments in higher ed, we're also seeing declining enrollments, right, coming out of high schools. And I think for a lot of institutions, there's going to be a need to rethink their learning ecosystem. Part of that's going to be probably attracting a different set of students than they may have been set up to serve in the past, thinking about more what we call post-traditional, non-traditional students. Thinking about ways to reorient, I think, traditional degree programs, leading into stackable credentials, opportunities that might open up access to higher education without having to commit to a four-year degree initially, but thinking about different on-ramps and exit ramps into the learning environment. But I think, for a lot of institutions, particularly those that have sort of traditionally served that 18-year-old coming out of high school, middle-class American, that is a group of individuals that has been shrinking recently, and so we've got to be expanding access and thinking differently about how do we serve the broader way folks in our country.
Absolutely makes sense. So another question that has come through is, as we broaden the lens to education more generally, what are the greatest challenges education will face due to the COVID pandemic? And this person asks, for students, what's the challenge? Teachers, what's their challenge? And parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. I could probably spend the next hour and a half talking about this one. I think one of the biggest challenges we're seeing right now simply is just maintaining an educational presence. K-12 is been really struggling lately to maintain continuity of operations. Anyone who has young kids may know that there's a constant threat right now of schools closing simply because they don't have enough teachers in classrooms. I have a second grader. When her teacher is out, usually she has 5 subs coming in, and that might be the principal, it might be another teacher. We just can't get enough folks in our classrooms right now, and that speaks to sort of EHS's commitment too of trying to expand the pipeline of teachers. We need more great teachers in our classrooms, and I think it's a national imperative that we think about ways that we are addressing this issue. The other impact, I think, that we don't know the full impact is going to be just the loss of learning that's occurred because of the pandemic. The pivot online quickly 2 years ago, a lot of learning did not happen. As teachers and schools have navigated all sorts of different learning environments, we know that a number of students have not kept pace with learning similar to cohorts in prior generations. So it's, I think all of us are thinking about ways that we are continuing to support students at the K-12 and the higher ed level, and acknowledging that for many, at least right now, a lot of them are going to come in with less preparation than what previous cohorts probably did. Another big issue is mental health, and I think for all of us, not just in education, right? Mental health has become an increasing concern. As we've dealt with this, what is a marathon of a crisis, and each of us grappled in it, I think, in different ways and experienced in different ways. But we know that students from 5th grade, and probably even lower, right through college, are increasing more and more mental health issues. That includes suicide ideation. That includes depression. It's scary to think about the fact that we have middle schoolers now that are highly anxious, right, and facing depression issues. There's a lot, and that goes into the whole social emotional learning aspect of education, that it's more than just the pedagogy now that teachers need to know, but they're counselors, they are supporters, they're trying to find ways to ensure that their students can be successful in the classroom. And so I think, we think about the staffing shortages, we think about sort of the loss of learning, we think about the mental health. Those are 3 of many challenges that we're facing because of COVID.
Yeah, well stated. Another question is, I acknowledge and applaud EHS's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, commitments that are sometimes hard to do. What have been your biggest challenges honoring those commitments?
I think maybe I'll talk about opportunities instead of challenges, but for us, we recognize that demographics are changing across the United States, and we need to be thinking about ways that we are expanding access to first-generation students, low SES students, other forms, of diversity. And it's imperative as we think about, from a classroom perspective, the demographics of the United States are changing. They are becoming more diverse. And the teachers that are in our classrooms should reflect more so, I think, the changing demographics of society. And so we've really been thinking about ways to expand access to communities that have maybe not traditionally thought about education as a career path. We have been working hard to make sure that all of our students feel a sense of belonging within the College of Education, Health, and Society, really thinking about ways that we build an inclusive environment. So whoever walks through our doors, right, knows that they are at a place that they belong and feel welcome and supported. I'd say part of that, one of our newest commitments is what we're calling the EHS Success Center, where we are bringing together a wide array of resources into a single unit here in McGuffey. We're investing in centralized advising supports. We're working in ways to ensure that students find the co-curricular opportunities they think are going to be successful for them, they would experience. So that might be study away or study abroad. Going to Luxembourg or going to Cincinnati, both of those are great experiences for folks who maybe hadn't experienced those. Thinking about ways that we are providing opportunities to improve their career services opportunities, internships, and those sorts of things. So I think, as a whole, our commitment really is around inclusivity, right? And how do we build an environment that's going to make sure whatever student we have in EHS comes in the door, they feel supported, and we're making sure that they are completing their degree and moving on to graduation.
Wonderful. So here's a question that I think you've probably gotten a few times in the past, but it's right here and it makes sense to be asked. How do you envision preparation for a teacher in tomorrow's world?
Well, that's a great question. And it goes back to some of the challenges I think I talked about earlier with the shifts in COVID. More and more, we need to ensure that they have a strong pedagogical foundation, right? They've got to be great teachers. They've got to know classroom management. They've got to know how to deal with, lesson plans. But so much of what's happening in the classroom is being affected by the environment around our students. We have an increasing number of students, K-12 and higher ed, for that matter, that are facing issues of homelessness, food insecurity, mental health, all of that. Ultimately funnels into the classroom because you can't separate those aspects from the classroom environment. And so, there's a shift toward what we call social emotional learning, right? Helping teachers better understand that broader context of what students are dealing with and what they bring with them into the classroom and how to successfully navigate that. I would say too, one of the things that we're seeing a shift toward, for obvious reasons, is being able to effectively teach remotely also, right? Folks say this may not be the only pandemic we face in our lifetime, and there may be other reasons why we have to shift remotely. And so I don't think we've, particularly in K-12, thought about the need to sort of help teachers prepare to be both in the classroom and remote learners. And so we're thinking about ways that we can support them in that remote environment. And beyond that, then it's just making sure that they have a broad understanding of who their students are going to be in their classroom and making sure that they can provide a curriculum that is relevant and engaging to students who inspire them all to go on and do great things.
Absolutely. So another question, EHS is a college comprised more of than education. EHS is a college comprised more than just education. Can you talk about some of the other areas that are in EHS and some of the new initiatives that are underway?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, you're right? I think our history is in education. We were founded in 1902. We're Miami's first professional school, but we have evolved beyond that. And so I think we've got great success in education, but we now cover areas of mental health. We're in social work, kinesiology and exercise science, public health, nutrition, sport leadership and management. And so some of the funded programs I think that are coming out, they're really cutting edge. We're launching a new certificate program, an undergraduate and graduate certificate in sport analytics. These are the folks, if you watch Moneyball at all, that are out there helping teams understand their data and think about performance of their players in different ways, but really honing it in on data. We launched our first Sport Analytic Academy last summer, where our students were working hand in hand with all sorts of professional sports teams. Including the Bengals, and I can't say that, we can attribute their success to that academy last year, but maybe we influenced a little bit of what's happening right now. But that's an exciting program. We're working with our colleagues in creative arts on esports management program and helping students be in the esports arena, which actually is one of the fastest growing businesses in the country. We have a nutrition program that is incredibly dynamic. We just moved into a post-baccalaureate internship program and a master's degree that will lead to the registered nurse, registered dietitian. And we're partnering with the Miami Farm to think about sustainability and how do we think about farm to table and food as medicine. We launched a new athletic training program at the master's level recently. So there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening in EHS that is beyond education alone. And so I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little about those exciting things that are happening beyond, beyond what we do in training great teachers. But we're training, I think, a large number of change makers to go out there and have a positive impact on society in different ways.
Terrific. And that actually segues beautifully into our last question, because you were ticking off all these things that are happening. And the last question is, when you step back, what do you see as the future for the college?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think it's incredibly bright. I was attracted to come to Miami because I got a really sense of it's a dynamic, it's an institution, and I think the college has just an incredible amount of success behind it and success for the future. I'll share. We talked a lot about education early on. We are one of the only education programs in all of Ohio that's actually growing right now. There's a real teacher shortage across Ohio. Part of that is because we've seen a lot more retirements out of COVID, but we've also seen fewer people coming into the teaching profession. And so we're seeing more students coming to us, an increasing number of students. I think that's because we have an outstanding curriculum and a great faculty who are really committed to student success. We are out in the community probably more than we've ever been. We have EDD cohorts now spread across Southwest Ohio. We're going to launch a new cohort of our EDD program in Cincinnati. We're working hand in hand with the regionals and offering some of our programming on the regional campuses. And all of this is part of our commitment to making sure that we're providing new pathways, all right, for students who may not otherwise have an opportunity to come to Oxford or may think about who may be pursuing their careers part-time. We're really ramping up what we're doing in the social work area. There's a huge need right now for mental health. And so, I'm excited about where we are with our Masters of Social Work and being able to expand opportunities there. And we've got incredibly great success, I think, in research also. And so we have a lot of great research programs that are going on, supporting the community to build dealing with issues, I think, that we've seen happen across the last couple of years, working hand in hand with cities and with police forces on a wide range of questions. We just got a $2.5 million grant to support more students coming into to TESOL. It's teaching English as a second language, and so encouraging more individuals to pursue certification in that area. That's the largest single grant I think one of our faculty members has ever received. We've got a lot of exciting work happening in the STEM areas and education areas, exercise science. So to me, as I look across what's happening, we've got new programs coming. We've got great historic programs that are getting better every day. We have a strong research program that's really tackling, I think, some interesting and dynamic questions. And frankly, our commitment to the communities that we serve in Southwest Ohio and across the state and around the world is stronger than ever. And so I'm really, really excited by what is yet to come for EHS.
That's terrific, Jason. And, I know we've worked together for a while, and I can't be more excited for EHS with you at the helm. So it's a terrific match. And thank you very much for your time today. Deans have always way more on their plate than they can ever get to. So giving us some time out of your busy schedule.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to some of our alums. I've had the opportunity to be out, and we just have remarkable alumni that are out there, and really appreciate them turning in to hear a bit more about what's happening.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. Just as Dean Lane said, it's always great to be with you. You are some of our most stalwart supporters, and I hope you've enjoyed your time getting to know one of our incredible deans. Thanks so much, and love and honor.
Love and honor.